Oh, the first blackberries are here, Mrs. W.
Yes, lovely. And many more to come by the looks of it. It looks pretty packed this year.
Oh, yes. It's all change in the garden. Everything has changed. Hello and welcome back to the Newdig Norfolk Gardener channel. Now, we said all the way back at the beginning of July when we did our top tips for the month, the special thing about July is it's all change. Everything changes. And we've had potato harvests, we've got onion harvests, we're enjoying tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce. So many things have been harvested out of this garden. The calabrese, the cabbages, the cauliflowers. But now they've given up their harvest. And actually, 2/3 of this garden now, Mrs. W, is all no food for later on this year and into next year.
Fantastic.
But it hasn't finished yet. Here in plot 2, and we're actually in bed 3, this has given up its harvest and it's now ready to receive its next plantings. What's it going to be? Well, it's actually going to be PSB, purple sprouting broccoli. Now I need to tell you a story about these. As you know, if you're a regular follower of our channel, myself and Mrs. W have attended many events this year. Sasha's graduation, George's and Aaron's, their wedding. We've been away on holiday for my mother's 80th birthday. But we made a mistake. We're not immune to them. We went off to Georgia and Aaron's wedding and it was an amazing day. But that weekend, when we went off, we had our purple sprouting broccoli all sitting in the polytunnel. And you'll know that because we've talked about it on other videos, just how cool, wet the weather has been this year. But it has been interspersed with rather quite hot days too. And of course, the weekend we were away, it was hot. We came back, didn't we, Mrs. W? And these poor plants were scorched, weren't they?
They were very scorched.
Their leaves had actually
feared
gone
for their
yellow.
lives.
I should have thought about it and thought, oh, I need to take these out and put them into the cold frame. But actually, it just goes to show you just how great nature is really, doesn't it? Because, believe you me, they were about that tall and all their leaves had gone yellow and a browny colour, hadn't they? And Mrs. W said, I need to save these babies. She has these sayings. I mean, they are purple sprouting broccoli to me, but they're Mrs. W's babies.
Of course they are.
So she immediately watered them.
I think I plunged them into a tray of water
into a
so
tray
they
of
could
water,
just
didn't you?
soak out.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Got them out of the polytunnel, and we actually, or I say we actually, you actually potted them on, gave them some fresh compost.
Yeah.
Which is what we see here. And then we put them in to the cold frame, hoping that they would recover.
And they did, it worked. They survived.
They survived.
Having said that, I wasn't entirely certain they would, so I did sow some more seeds. So we've got quite a few extra ones now. So
Yes.
friends and family, if you'd like some purple sprouting broccoli plants, we have them.
Yeah, we immediately sowed some more seed. in anticipation that these plants weren't going to make it. But as you can see, they have, and they're looking good. So they're going in some 2 to 3 weeks later than I would have anticipated, but they'll be fine. Veg gardens can evolve. And it has for myself and Mrs. W. There would have been a time, perhaps 4 or 5 years ago, in this strip here, there would have been 12 sprouting broccoli plants. The main reason for that is because we only used to grow the one variety, which was Rudolph. It harvests over quite a long period, doesn't it? We normally get the first harvest in December, and it goes all the way through, really. Well, we've been having harvest right up to March, haven't we?
Yeah.
But then young Ken over there in Wales, he told us about claret. And so we started to grow claret. And that gives its harvest toward the end of March through April and into May. The other change in our life, of course, is that it's just myself and Mrs. W here now. The children all have their own homes, houses, flats. They've gone. So really, we're only feeding ourselves. So we no longer need to have 6 plants in a row. Over the last couple of years, we actually scaled that down to just 5. So there's only 10 plants between the 2 rows, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
But now this year, there's only going to be 6. And really the reason for that is that we've found another variety called early purple sprouting broccoli, which we're going to be planting. That should give us harvest during November and through into December. Rudolph, December, through into sort of late February into March. And then we get to claret. Boy, is that prolific.
It is.
We simply can't keep up with it.
No, even giving it away to friends and family, it was so amazingly prolific. But yeah, it's a little bit wasteful if you can't get rid of it. And
unbelievable. And so we can use other parts of the garden now to grow things like winter cabbages and winter cauliflower. So that although our aim is to have a fresh vegetable every week of the year that we can just come out here and pick, we do like a variety because
we'd like to have a little bit more of a selection of not just having to have purple sprouting broccoli every meal for your greens.
So that's why things are sort of changed. We know that the claret will just give us so many harvests. And believe you me, it's so valuable. If you haven't grown the variety claret, F1 claret before, it will give you so many harvests. It's so valuable towards the end of April and May when we're in the hungry gap. And there's not so much fresh to harvest out here. Especially if you don't have a polytunnel or a greenhouse like myself and Mrs. W. Because we can start things off earlier in there, let them over winter, and we get those harvests slightly earlier. You'll have seen that earlier in the year. But if you are just tied to being outside, as I say, claret will give you that harvest at that time of year. We can also enjoy it at Christmas when Rudolph comes. But also we'll be able to mix it in with our winter cabbages and Romanesco during November. Hopefully. These harvests may go a little later. One of the things, and I think I said it in the urgent message for gardeners, everything seems to be harvesting 2 to 3 weeks later, which is why we gave you the message. Sow all your seedlings 1 week earlier. If you haven't seen that video, by the way, go back and watch that. I'll leave the link in the description. Because everything just is harvesting just that little bit later. Very welcome, but just that little bit later. Here are the claret, Mrs. W.
Lovely. See, I talked ever so nicely to them when I potted them on. With all of my fingers and toes crossed at the same time.
They're ready to go in there now. And as usual, we plant them nice and deeply right up to their first set of leaves. Now, I know a lot of you have actually said to me about the pak choi that we grow, Yushu. And this has been so good. You can see these two here. I'm actually going to harvest these today And
I think they possibly are just about to start to rise to flower, aren't they?
Yeah, but they've been here since May.
I think it was a bit earlier than that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the same time we put these
Red cabbage.
in, wasn't it? So I'm going to have those. And you probably saw earlier in the month that I actually put some more into the polytunnel.
And we have sown some more as well to go outside, haven't we? So.
We certainly have. You can see they look a lovely pak choi. By the time we sort of have the leaves that are not so good off, the ones in the middle are really untouched. People often ask me about no-dig, about, well, how do you get your plants up without putting a fork or a spade in there? Well, it's simple. I just simply twist them out. You can see where the roots have been broken. I leave those in the ground. They will simply just become more food for the soil life. And that soil life will make some lovely, nutrient-rich soil that gives us great harvests, like this. I know a lot of you in the comments have said exactly how do you spell that. And of course, I spell it you, as in you, and shoe. But it's not actually. You can see by Mrs. W's writing, that's exactly how you spell you shoe. And actually, Mrs. W, it just goes to show you just how good my memory is, doesn't it? Because looking on the back, we actually sowed these on the 13th of January.
I thought, when you said May, I thought, no, they've been in there longer than that. I know they have.
So you can just see how valuable that particular variety is. We probably put it in, well, we would have put it in when the kohlrabi went in, so everything would have been planted into here. Well, it would have been March.
Yeah.
And they've been here all that while.
Yeah.
We've been enjoying the harvest from the others.
The ticket's still in there for the kohlrabi. We need to take that out.
Yeah, there it is, yeah.
Has that got a date on the back as well?
No. You failed in your labelling on that one, Mrs. W. No matter.
Hey-ho.
You can see here that we have some really quite nice red cabbages now forming, which will very much please Mrs. W because she does love a red cabbage, especially to make some lovely coleslaw.
Yep. Super.
And of course, while we've been waiting for those, you actually made some using the kohlrabi, didn't you?
I did. That was very nice. Yeah,
And that
really
was good
nice.
too.
And I've also popped in another succession sowing
Yeah, another two.
a few weeks ago. Well, there's one at the other end as well. So there's
Well,
another.
one-
There's
yes,
another
there is,
three.
yes.
Yeah. There's
There
another
is,
three. So.
which will have a bit more room once we harvest these.
Yeah.
But then Mrs. W can then make the things that she makes in the autumn period in the run-up to Christmas. But what I want to do now is to get the next planting in here. And with no dig, it is really quite simple. There's the odd weed, which needs to come out. And then you can use a rake. I haven't got a rake to hand at the moment, but I don't have a rake.
That's quite level actually, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite level. And I'll just roughly level it with my feet. And that's how easy it is. And next to go in here is going to be some cabbages. Now I need to make an apology, because on the July tour, Mrs. W just turns around in that bed there. I said we had some cabbages there called Jade. They are not, they are Cordisa. They're actually now starting to heart up. They're turning their leaves in, which is great because we expect to have a harvest from those and eat those during October and November. And actually, Jade are going in here. The idea of July being the month of change is that the days are still very long. It's light from 4:30 in the morning, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it still doesn't get dark here in the UK in our no-dig Norfolk garden until 9:15, 9 o'clock. And although that will keep decreasing over the next month or so, there's still some very long days to come. So by getting your plants in now that are going to feed you the back end of this year in 2024 and into 2025, you're actually getting a march on things. Because the day length is so long, it's almost like you've got 2 days into one for them to grow. Because remember, when we put the plants in back in March, it wasn't getting light until 6:30, and it would have been dark at around 6:30 in the evening. Now all of a sudden we've got this another 5, 6, 7 hours of daylight that these plants can grow in.
Good growing time.
Exactly, Mrs. W. But it's important that they do their growing now and get themselves 2/3 of the way there between now and when those clocks go backwards in October. Now, off camera, we've actually put some triumphant cauliflowers in just down here. And that was after we cleared that row which gave us harvests in June. You can see that the July harvest, we still have 3 cabbages to go. We'll enjoy those over the next couple of 3 weeks, as and when we need them. But also down in plot 1, we also popped our swede in. And you know, I was thinking to myself that nature is amazing really, isn't it? All of the plants that we actually transplanted today were afflicted by sunburn, basically,
Yeah.
scorching. But Mrs. W has nursed them through, and they're now in the plots, and they can start to get growing and be getting away. Now I do hope that you've enjoyed this duo of videos all about succession planting in particular. It's probably the most popular comment that I get on the channel. What can I plant next? How do I succession plant? What is succession planting? If we've inspired you to actually succession plant and have more harvests deeper into the year, do let us know. Let us know what you've planted. Let us know what plants you still have ready to go into your plots. Of course, to be able to do that successfully, you do need to have plants that are ready to go, as your plants that are in the plots are giving up their harvest. So you need to know when to be sowing them. And we've done our own Sow With Us series all through the years. Not finished yet, because there'll be some more next month. But if you want to know when to sow your seeds in order that you can succession plant too, then watch this video that's coming up at the bottom of your screen next. It's a playlist of all of our Sow With Us videos. Have a great gardening week. We shall see you on the next one.